The year is 2003. Everybody arrives in school Monday morning to discuss the crazy announcement that dropped that weekend. Spore, the multi-planetary, microbiological, space exploration game. Scoring a whopping 9.2 out of 10 by IGN back in 2003. Which is great, because that's a time when IGN's ratings actually meant something to somebody. Honestly, the week this was announced, our school had to put a ban on people talking about Spore. The promises made in the trailer seemed too good to be true. Infinite possible planets. Creating any creature you could imagine. And most importantly, taking to space and becoming the very gods that created these planets. My parents didn't have a lot of money at the time, and had probably just purchased whichever Halo game had just come out for me. So the first time I got to play this game was at a friend's house, and boy was it worth the wait. But that was 13 years ago that little Callum got excited about Spore. So, with that in mind, it's time for a nostalgia check. We start off looking at a galaxy with planets to choose from. In this case, we had 6 planets to choose from, and we went with planet number 5. Twitch chat chose it because it looked the most like Earth, which is an achievement in itself, as every planet in Spore is completely procedural. Allegedly, there are over 500,000 possible planets that can be formed. This alone was incredible 13 years ago and is still impressive today. Next up, we get to choose our diet. Weirdly enough, the Twitch chat decided against the option of going vegan, and we chose to be the carnivorous cell. This is where I also remembered one of the best things about Spore, the music. Considering Spore was never meant to be an atmospheric kind of game, they absolutely nailed the music. Understated and magical. Every step of the way, the music matches the feeling of your single-bodied cell advancing from nothing to a spacefaring civilization. After Twitch had voted for the most boring looking out of the planets, naming it Dreamworld, and settled on us becoming an apex predator, we started our journey as a little cell hurtling towards our chosen planet on a meteor. This is the beginning of our adventure in Spore. We arrive in the tide pool, Spore's starting area, that also acts as a tutorial for elements of the game you're going to see for 20 minutes and then never revisit again. The tide pool is a body of water on the planet you chose previously. One thing Spore does amazingly here is informing the player that choices you make here will forever impact your journey and the outcome of your character. This is something that games today still fail to inform you. Nothing is worse than making a decision only to find out that it's completely permanent and likely to screw you over later. Our first mission as a little squidgy red boy is to eat everything in sight and collect DNA points. This DNA can be used to add new body parts, which often come with new abilities to your cell, slowly growing it into something bigger. Our creature started off looking a little phallic, but that's okay as we were about to sort that out, sort of. As we had chosen to make our Spore a carnivore, we could only eat meat floating around in the tide pool or other creatures after vanquishing them in combat that consists of ramming into the mouth first, like some weird sort of Love Island BattleBots crossover. After treating the tide pool as an all-you-can-eat buffet for the last 5 minutes, the game prompts us to call for a mate. After watching our cell mate with another cell, we're introduced to the main attraction of Spore, the creature creator. This is where you can spend those previously mentioned DNA points on modifying your phallic-looking cell. The amount of customization here is absolutely unreal. Base colour, pattern colour, detail colour, and every single body part you could possibly think of. But that's something we'll take a deeper look at later. Our cell was getting absolutely bullied in the tide pool by bigger and better equipped cells, so it was time for some much needed upgrades. We added some spikes to defend ourselves from attackers from the rear, and flagella to help us swim faster. This is where it's important to note that no upgrades are purely visual. Every body part has stats ranging from speed, defense, sight, flight time, and damage. So with spikes to protect our rear and our flagella attached, we started to flagellate around the tide pool, attacking creatures anus first to try and find more food. After eating enough dead corpses from the tide pool, we somehow grew legs and migrated to the land. And this is where the game really starts to open up. The tide pool is an amazing introduction that teaches you the absolute basics of Spore, which is great as they're definitely features specific to this game, even 13 years later. We're instantly greeted by an interface explaining that the top right will show off a list of our current objectives. This is something that really made me remember why Spore was so different to other games. As the whole game is procedural, well, the objectives are no different. As you discover the nests of other creatures and species, you will get different objectives, such as kill 5 of a species, or if you want, you can also befriend 5 of that species. The choice is yours and the reward is the same, which is a really nice touch that doesn't force anybody into any specific playstyle. But before we venture off into the big wild, we needed to equip ourselves for life with legs. I somehow managed to create a sentient avocado with a mace as a tail and a face only a mother could love. Seeing as I had added massive tusks to my face and gained attack stats, the game then taught me to attack with my newly learned ability, before allowing me to leave the nest. Which is great, as I probably wouldn't have noticed this new ability otherwise. Life on land is a lot more like your typical game, using WASD movement and space to jump, as opposed to the mouse movement we used in the cell stage. Although I had created this creature to be an absolute big chungus, a force to be reckoned with, I couldn't help but find him adorable. I had created an adorable melon that walked like an Oompa Loompa. Seconds after I ventured out into this planet we call home, I ran into our first species, a pitflonk. Click this button to find out. I immediately roared at it to assert dominance, which Twitch chat shouted at me for and told me to go and make friends with it, as it was also long and green, just like me. So we tried to befriend him the only way we knew how, by serenading it, and that seemed to do the trick. I realised I had a quest to impress 2 more pitflonk, so I headed towards their nest where an egg proceeded to roll down the hill at me like something out of Paranormal Activity. So after busting out a few more ballads, I finally earned the pitflonk as an ally. Allying also unlocks more body parts for you to use in the creature creator. With a load more DNA from my befriending adventure, I went back to my nest, mated with another avocado, and shit out an egg so big that it really makes you wonder about the logistics. It was at this point that Twitch chat decided we should model our character after Orkle, our Orchid Mantis stream mascot. Which was convenient as we had just unlocked a lot of insect-looking body parts. So we added multiple legs so we could also move around faster. We didn't have enough DNA for all the modifications we wanted, so Chonky Mantis was set free into the world in its half-finished state. It was at this point that I realised that this game absolutely did not use my GPU to any capacity whatsoever. Which makes sense for a game from 13 years ago, but boy were those loading times noticeable after modifying your character. As I was leaving the nest with my new creepy legs that definitely looked like they were about to snap under my weight, I rediscovered that collecting bones laying around unlocks bone-like body parts. After collecting bones and devouring anything I ran into for more DNA points, we learned the ability to bring an ally along with us for our adventures, which proved to be almost useless as we allied with all the small creatures and murdered the tougher ones. In light of this revelation, I decided to ally the next species we came across, the amp turtles. This was a swift reminder of why I didn't try to ally with the previous animals I encountered. The sentient avocado mantis died valiantly running away from the amp turtles. After dying, the game gave me a tip. Retreat to your nest to heal, which is great considering that's exactly what I was trying to do. We respawn at our nest where we discover we don't incur any death penalties, which is a blessing as we're about to die a lot. Before we go back out into the wild, we decide to make full transition from sentient avocado to beautiful mantis. We gave him a full new body, insect feet, wings, and mantis claws. This was going great until I realised I had in fact removed his eyes and made him completely colourblind. So after a quick trip to grab some bones for DNA, and another trip back to the creature creator, we were finally the apex predator. With our newfound ability to glide and actually see where we're going, we took off to find some more species to befriend, starting with the amp turtles who absolutely decimated me last time. They took great offence to my twerking and swiftly hunted me down while I took to the skies in fear. This is where we ran into the big heads, who I managed to seduce with my sick moves. While not a very threatening creature, they were at least our first allies, so I decided to bring one along as a bodyguard. After partnering up with what I can only describe as kids' TV nightmare fuel, we proceeded to go out and fuck up some locals. With our newfound power, we decimated them and even unlocked a new set of arms, which are literally mantis claws. It was at this moment that I had a revelation that pressing tab swaps between combat and social mode. I had been pressing tab to target creatures and then pressing to interact, which is most likely why everything previously had tried to murder me when all I wanted to do was say hello. Big Head proved to be completely useless during these fights, as he mostly sat on the sideline or stared at plant life. However, Big Head did decide to help me in combat when I slaughtered the recently orphaned children. With my newfound confidence in genocide and Big Head by my side, I went back to the Amp Turtles. After aggroing the entire pack, I started to flee. This was the last we ever saw of Big Head. After respawning from our previous encounter, I was informed that our species was migrating nests, which makes complete sense being as I had pretty much murdered all of our neighbours. Whilst on the way to our new housing situation, I came across whatever the fuck these are and proceeded to leave them the hell alone. However, we did try to ally with some missile fleas as they attempted to murder me. After a treacherous journey, we arrived at our new place and celebrated with the family by wiping our dirty feet on the new carpet. And honestly, I immediately started to wish we'd never moved, as I spotted an absolute monstrosity with 1000 health, which I didn't stand a chance against with my 17. After heading into the wilds again, I made contact with this weird Jar Jar Binks looking thing who turned down all my advances of friendship. And honestly, this was the highest point of this playthrough. Everything is downhill from here. After learning the charm ability, which was apparently the thing I was missing that caused some of the species to turn down my sexual advances, me and one of my trusted friends from my own species went out looking for blood. We died. Then we returned with 3 of us this time, and died again. It was here that Spore randomly crashed while respawning us, almost as if to tell us that enough was enough. It was also at this point that I realised autosave didn't quite exist in 2013. This is where I decided to end my playthrough of Spore on stream, and went to bed feeling defeated at the loss of my creation. However, I did jump out of bed the next morning and start another game save. Spore replayability is almost infinite. No 2 playthroughs will be the same, especially if you build your character differently each time. While Spore is definitely showing its age with long loading screens and lack of autosave, I still believe it is truly a one-of-a-kind game. Most games I would describe to you as feels like Halo or plays like League of Legends, but Spore is just Spore. And I truly love when companies innovate in this way. And that's why I'm giving Spore an 8 out of 10 nostalgia rating. While the game is incredible and infinite, it feels like there's a lot of wasted potential in the earlier stages of the game, such as the cell stage. I wish it felt longer and more rewarding, rather than just feeling like a 20-minute time gate to the rest of the game. Ladies and gents, this has been a nostalgia check, and Spore definitely lived up to its hype. The fact a game sits unseated 13 years later and is the only game of its kind, that is a real accomplishment for a game company. Ladies and gents, thank you so much for watching, and as always, a massive thank you to the patrons. If you guys wish to support this kind of content, please consider subscribing to my Patreon. It means the world to me. Also, if you guys are enjoying this new series and want it to continue, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you would like me to check out next week. After this video, I'm going to be live over on Twitch, playing some games and chatting to you guys about today's episode. So if that's something you're interested in, hop over and I'll see you there. For everybody else, have a fantastic day and an awesome week. Remember guys, every like on the video equals 1 rose put on Big Head's coffin.